Right, okay, well, it is 5 o'clock, so maybe we should start. Good afternoon, everybody, and for those watching on YouTube, this is the virtual meeting of the Scrutiny Budget and Performance Panel. I'm Councillor David Howarth, and I'm the chair of the panel. This is an audio and a video meeting. It's being recorded, and the stream is also live on YouTube. The web address for this is displayed on the council's website. Members are asked to keep their microphone on mute and only unmute when they wish to speak. The leader and officers will present the report, and then I'll invite panel members to ask any questions. If any committee members wish to speak, please unmute your microphone, say your name, or use the raise your hand feature. Preferably say your name, because I don't know what the raise your hand feature is. I'll then invite you in order. If the technology fails, which hopefully it won't, then I will join the meeting for several minutes and we'll try and resolve the issue. Or if this is not possible, a new date and time will be organised, although we seem to have been doing okay so far. So can I ask all members to confirm they can see, hear and speak before the meeting begins? I'll call out each member alphabetically. Councillor Will Adams.
Yeah.
Councillor Colin Coulton. Don't think he's with us as yet. Councillor Colin Sharples.
Yeah, loud and clear.
Colin, can you unmute and let us know if you can hear and see us okay?
Is that me or the other Colin?
Good. No, Colin Sharples.
Yeah, I'm unmuted. I can hear everybody.
Councillor Karen Walton.
Hello, good afternoon.
Oh, we can see you now. Good.
Yeah, yes, I went in the iPad and clicked on something.
Good, very good. So we've moved forward, and if Colin joins us, we've got a full house. The officers with us this evening are Darren Cranshaw, who is the Assistant Director of Scrutiny and Democratic Services, Charlotte Lynch, who is the Democratic and Member Services Officer, and our guests are Councillor Paul Foster, Leader of the Council, and Gary Hall, the Interim Chief Executive. So if I can open the meeting, I take it we don't have any apologies for absence. We all appear to be here, and Colin is trying to join us. Do we have any declarations of interest? I'll take the silence as no. Minutes of the last meeting, I was still stranded in Frankfurt from memory. So if I could thank Councillor Coulton for chairing the last meeting, and could somebody move the minutes, and can we agree them?
Move them.
Thank you. Is that seconded?
I agree. I'll second, yeah.
Those all agreed? Yes, thank you. And then thank you. Item 4 on the agenda is matters arising from previous scrutiny and budget panel meetings. Do we have any items people wish to raise or responses on that? I mean, one of the questions I would ask is when we're actually going to get some of these blank spaces filled in. We have a number there: income target for increased commercial income, fees and charges for hiring the conference centre, and then down at the bottom, the revenue budget summary breakdown and an update on Shrubs Wood. Those still all have blank spaces there, and we should be getting a progress report on those.
Chair, if I could just mention that we will make sure that a full response is provided to the panel for those items, and then for future meetings it will be complete. Could I just mention the second to the last recommendation around the revenue budget summary breakdown? Jane Blundell did let you have a copy of that prior to her leaving, and that has been shared with the panel now. But I do know you've been in discussions with our Section 151 officer about further work that the panel might like on budget monitoring and also around value for money.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, Chair. Thank you. Do you have any other comments on that item? If not, if we can move on to item 5, which is the Q4 Period 2 Performance Monitoring Report. And if I could ask Councillor Foster and the Interim Chief Executive, Gary Hall, to present, and then we can take questions. So, Gary and Paul, over to you.
Thanks, Chair. Prior to if Gary's okay with this, I'll just give you a quick resume, Chair and committee, on the Q4 report for 2019-20, which was up to the 31st of March this year. Clearly, the authority had started to be impacted upon with the COVID-19 pandemic. But as I go through, what I intend to do, Chair, with your permission, is just briefly go through a couple of items that I would like to highlight in each of the particular portfolio areas, and then just leave Gary and I to answer any questions you and your committee members may have. So the executive summary, as you've seen in the report, overall performance during Q4 of 1920 has been good, with a number of key successes and objectives completed, and the majority of projects and activities rated as on track. And the little summary table there: 4% are completed, 9% are succeeding, 70% are on track, and 15% are currently, or were, sorry, off track. And as you know, Chair, we tend to report by exception, which is the basis of the report in front of you now. Just quickly on COVID-19, you'll notice in the report it says that the COVID-19 crisis will continue to have a significant operational and financial impact on the council, its partners and the communities that we serve. It's now important that the council has a clear plan for how we will recover its services and return to business as usual as quickly as possible. And you'll know, Chair, from discussions we've had with me over the number of weeks now, that I'm really, really keen to get us back to that business as usual as quickly as possible. And as it says there, a key focus will be getting all the core services back up and running efficiently. However, there are some aspects of the response effort that will need to remain in place for an extended period of time, such as the community hub and the enhanced support for the local businesses. Moving through to the main summary of the report, if I may, excellence, investment and financial sustainability. The main achievements in this portfolio area over through Q4 was the digital to improve activity has been an integral part of progressing towards the success objectives, and I'm sure the entire committee will be aware of the substantial work the IT team has done to get us all online as quickly as possible, because if we all look back 6 months, we didn't conclude any virtual meetings or any remote meetings, and so it's a good, really pleasing piece of work that the IT was found wanting. Let's not beat about the bush. We know we've had challenges with the IT and the digital to improve, but Paul and the team have really done a good job progressing that, and that's particularly pleased me. And of the 6 projects reported within this portfolio, 4 are on track, 1 is complete, and 1 is off track, which is the review of the council surpluses sites, which I'm sure the committee chair may come on to later on. The next portfolio is the health, wellbeing and safety. And the key achievements in this quarter was that the green links, once again, in the green corridors, are making great progress. The Citizens Advice Bureau, we've managed to make a final agreement with them now, and they're moving into the Civic Centre to provide full face-to-face advice services for the residents. And the holiday hunger scheme has been an overwhelming success, although I don't particularly like saying that, because of what we're having to, what it actually means is that there are hungry kids within the borough that we're feeding, but our holiday hunger scheme has worked really, really well. And I'm hopefully you'll all be pleased to know, because we had that already established within the authority, it made that community hub engagement when the COVID pandemic struck much easier for us to deliver very, very quickly. And again, I'm sure we'll get asked questions on that later. Within this portfolio, there's 12 projects under this priority. 10 are on track, you'll be pleased to know. 1 is succeeding and 1 is off track, which is the MH2K. Moving on swiftly, Chair, our people and communities. Obviously, clearly, community involvement is at the heart of everything in which this council undertakes its business, and you know it's a core priority of the new administration. There's been obviously a slight delay in the implementation of our full revision of the neighbourhood forums, but as you'll see when we get to the next quarterly report and the council meetings in July, we're starting to make significant progress there. The tempo time credits have also been introduced, and you'll also recall that the council approved a revised council tax support scheme for 2020-2021. And out of the 9 key projects under this portfolio that are considered a key priority, 1's been completed, 2 are succeeding, 5 are on track, and 1 has yet to be started, which is the community bank or the credit union. And then we move on to place, homes and environment, Chair. Clearly the key activities, again, I've mentioned it earlier, are the green areas within the borough, and hopefully as councillors you've all seen that despite the pandemic we're still on with delivering playgrounds in 2 or 3 key areas, brand new playgrounds, which is really, really pleasing to see for the community. The Leyland Master Plan has been progressed, and we're also looking to continue to deliver good quality, secure and affordable homes for the residents of South Ribble. Of the 19 projects under this priority, 1 is succeeding, 13 are on track, and unfortunately 5 are off track, which are detailed there within the report. And clearly Gary and I are willing to take any questions you may have on that. There is much information, Chair, within the report, and I don't intend to do a page turn on it now, but we leave myself and Gary open to any questions you and your committee may have about corporate performance in Q4 of 2019-20. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Sharples, I believe you have a question first. If you could unmute, Colin.
Hello.
Right, we've got you now.
Page 9, paragraph 4, references made to the performance management framework. Please could you talk us through the process involved in ensuring the data presented is now accurate and can be relied upon, bearing in mind the comments made in the annual governance statement?
Gary? Is Gary there?
We lost him.
I think he's there. I don't know if he's unmuted.
Chair, he does seem to have left the meeting. However, Vicky Willett is in the meeting. I don't know if she would be able to perhaps help.
So I'll jump in, Chair, until Gary's back on. Clearly this was a. Sorry, you there, Vicky?
Sorry, hi.
Yeah.
Hiya.
Right, did you pick up the question, or would you like to hear it again?
The question around assuring the robustness of the data in the performance report in light of the annual governance statement.
Yes, please.
That's the one.
Okay, so the data this quarter, it should be accurately reported. Obviously, we've had a full review of all the performance measures that have been in there and the data definitions. That's something that we'll be taking forward into the refresh as well. So we'll be reviewing all of the projects and measures. So that's something that's kind of a double check and balance there. But I'm assured that the information that's presented this quarter is robust data.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. If Councillor Coulton was here, he did have a question on the effect of COVID. I don't know, Darren, if you could read that out on his behalf.
Thank you, Chair. I know Councillor Coulton was keen to ask whether on page 10, paragraph 10, the leader could elaborate on the impact of COVID. And I do know the leader mentioned it in his opening remarks. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, clearly in this is Q4 of 2019-20, Chair, as you all know. So this is up to and including the 31st of March 2020. Now, COVID had an impact clearly because we'll all remember that leading up to late February and March, the whole country was closing down, and it did have an impact upon the council services. It clearly did. It did not in any way have an impact on the council services as much as Q1 2020-2021 will show, where, you know, we maintain frontline services, as you all know. The bins were still emptied, the grass was cut, the benefits were paid. The challenge we have as an authority fundamentally is our budget moving ahead. We have, and you may or may not have seen this in the report that we produced with the rest of the district councils and the county council that we did to government recently. Potentially, the biggest financial impact for COVID will hit us in the next financial year, and it could be as much as £6 million per year against our budgets, are our projections. So we need government to support us. We really, really need government to support us. And it doesn't matter which political party you're from, whether you're from the Liberal Democrats, whether you're from Labour, or whether you're Conservative. As a local authority, we must all stand side by side, shoulder to shoulder. Government must support us. We were asked to do everything and do everything we needed to do, support our local community and our local businesses, and we did this. There is undoubtedly going to be a further financial impact on that. We know what it is. We are reporting it to government. We just need government to support us. What we are planning to do is clearly we have the next quarterly monitoring report, the Q1 for 2020-2021. All the detail, every single bit of detail will be in that for the committee to have a look at. And I do anticipate we're going to have a long discussion about it. I hope that helps, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Do we have anybody who wishes to follow up on that? In which case, Councillor Will Adams, I believe you. Hello.
Just to confirm, we do now have Councillor Coulton with us.
Right. Okay. Thank you. Moving on, Will, you had a question on page 10.
Yes, page 10, paragraph 10/11. The report says how important it is to have a business recovery plan in place. I know that the member working group has now been set up, which I am part of. But I was just kind of wondering, have we any other plans in place after this in terms of the working group? Will there be a report, and will those plans be made available to members? And also, how will it be monitored in terms of our response?
Is Gary on yet?
Yeah.
Darren,
yes, I'm back on.
Oh, okay, thank goodness for that.
Can you can you hear me? Yeah. Okay, so again, I'll bring Vicky in at some point, but clearly, in respect of COVID, we've been in the response phase up until possibly a week or so ago. We're now turning our attention to what we're calling phase 2. It's interesting that people start to use the word recovery. Actually, we're still in actually a containment phase, and there's that's what we class as phase 2. Once we're out of the containment phase, then there's a chance to go into recovery. Recovery will probably only come once we get a vaccine. And we know that's some time off. So in this containment phase, what we've got to try to do is to step up our service delivery back to new norm. I'm not saying what the new norm is because we're still working through that. So we are starting to put those plans together. As Paul has said previously, most of our services continued during the lockdown. However, I think you can start to see from the reports that actually towards the latter end, the tail end of the quarter, there were some things that we didn't quite get to, and that was really mainly a result of transferring staff into the response phase. So we're on with it. I know that Vicky, you probably got a bit more detail to hand than I have. So if you wanted to come in, Vicky, and share that with us.
On the business response, sorry.
The recovery plan, Vicky.
The recovery plan,
part of the business continuity management stuff.
Yeah. So as part of the recovery plan, we're undertaking a full refresh of the corporate programme, and we're looking at the corporate priorities to make sure that our resources are aligned to the future priorities, particularly around communities, but also business and the support that they're going to need to have. So as part of that process, we will be making sure that all of the activities aligned around supporting businesses, and really looking at how we obviously measure performance in that area as well, in terms of the indicators that we use. So I think the communities and business will both be a key focus for that refresh process, and we'll be able to bring more information on that to the next panel.
Okay, thank you.
Chair, do you mind if I just interject
on Councillor Coulton? Yes.
Can you hear me?
I can hear
Yes.
you, Colin. Yes.
Yeah.
There's somebody
First of all, let me.
but I'm not sure who it was.
Can I apologise for not being in the meeting at the start? I had a great deal of problems with my tablet, which I finally got into.
Well, you keep taking them, Colin, and you'll be okay.
Sorry? Keep taking the tablets. I don't take any tablets, David, at all.
All right. Maybe that's the problem.
Free watershed, remember.
Can I ask, the government allocated a certain amount of money to councils because of COVID-19. Have we actually got the money from the government?
Shall I pick that one up, Paul?
Yeah, thanks, Gary.
Yeah. So yes is the answer to that, Colin. So the council received just over £1 million from the government in grant to manage through the crisis. Now, my view is that whilst initially we're not seeing the impact of COVID financially, other than what I would call some relatively small amounts of additional expenditure that we've had to incur. So, for instance, we probably incurred more expenditure on food parcels and things like that, because the government system wasn't working effectively for quite a period during the response phase. So, and some people weren't covered by it. So, we've incurred relatively small amounts of additional expenditure during that period, including, a little bit of extra staff time to deal with the response, etc. The biggest single impact will start to come towards probably the middle to the end of this year, as we start to understand what the economic impact is going to have on people's ability to pay for things like council tax, and more importantly, for businesses to pay business rates. Now, when that starts to unravel, it may well be, and I think this is the point that Paul was making a little bit earlier, that actually that could be quite a significant sum for the council. Depends on the impact, and nobody can really, I think, truly forecast the impact. So whilst it might be that we've not committed much of that money that we received at this moment in time, I think that we will start to have to call on that funding at some point in the near future. The other point that Councillor Foster was making was that if you look at scenario planning, it could well be that £1 million isn't enough to cover what may happen. We've already seen a number of councils issuing statutory reports, so starting to talk about issuing statutory reports to their councils, which basically says that they're going to run out of money. Now, we're not, I'm not suggesting for 1 minute that at this moment in time this council is in that position, but we'll have to monitor it carefully. We'll have to see what the impact, particularly the economic impact, is on our ability to generate revenue, and kind of take it from there. There's a call, district councils in particular, for the government to review the way that they're funding the COVID crisis, and put more money into district councils in particular, who will see the impact perhaps a little bit later on than the immediate impact that things like additional costs in social care adult social care that many of the upper tier authorities are currently seeing.
Right, thank you.
Okay, and Colin, you had a question on page 11 about a detailed report on Mind the Gap and health inequalities. Colin Coulton, sorry.
I was going to ask, on page 11, are we talking about now?
Yes, paragraph 14.
It mentions a report being made available, and I was wondering when the report would be made available.
That's a further detailed report on Mind the Gap and health inequalities in
Yeah,
South.
that's the one, yeah.
Yeah. If we could have a response on that.
Yeah, shall I come in at that point, Chair? So the part of the Mind the Gap report is done, because we a piece of work on that. But in terms of general inequalities, there's still a bit of work to do on that, Colin. I think the other thing that would be kind of remiss of me not to point out at this time is that had we maybe produced that report now, I think moving forward it might look completely different. So I think what we've got to do is to take a little bit of time to review the impact of the COVID crisis on inequalities, and then report back to members on where we feel Vicky pointed out that actually earlier that we're going to refresh the corporate plan, and that inequalities piece will pick up through that planning process. So members will see that actually a more detailed response to the inequalities piece as we update the corporate plan.
Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you for that. Can I take you to page 11, paragraph 17? Does the increase in the number of online transactions as part of the digital strategy lead to a financial cost saving, and how is this measured, please?
Okay, thank you, Chair. I think that could be the case. I don't think the increase that we've seen today would we haven't started to measure at which point by moving people to transactional services online from face to face would impact on the scalability of, in particular, the council's contacts. But again, that benefit realisation piece, I've seen a first draft of that, and I'm quite happy to commit to bringing the kind of ICT benefit realisation piece back to scrutiny once I've finalised that piece. So it's to answer the question, Chair, that's work in progress.
Okay, thank you. And I have another question. If I can take you to page 12 and at paragraph 21, is the reason for the review of the council's surplus sites being off track due to a lack of capacity? And is this capacity now in place? If so, is there a new target date for bringing this back on track, please?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. So to some extent, that is the case. Up until where that team has not been fully staffed. Interestingly, the market is quite challenging in respect of estate surveyors, but we have managed to secure an individual into that post now. They've been in post probably about 3 months. We're getting through the backlog. As has been said previously, we're going to have to reassess, given the impact of COVID, all our targets and all our delivery plans in relation to these items. But given that that this was one of the items that was picked up in the governance review about the issue around asset registers, etc., I'd anticipate that it will be within the next 6 to 9 months that we bring that piece back, but I haven't got an exact date for the panel at the minute.
Okay, thank you.
Chair, can I just
Councillor
add, Chair, could I just add
Yeah.
to that, please?
Yeah.
It's Paul. It's quite a frustration of mine as a councillor that the council's assets have been continually reviewed, it appears, for a number of years now, and we don't seem to have made much progress. So we have asked the chief executive and the team to prioritise this now, absolutely prioritise it. But what I want them to bring forward to you is an accurate asset register and an accurate review of what the surplus sites can and cannot bring to the council and the community. So I do apologise that that's delayed, but I'd rather bring you something that's right than something that's just perhaps not as it should be. But it is a frustration that I share, and it is a priority.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Colin Sharples, I think you wanted to come in with a question about holiday hunger.
Yes, I did. Page 13, paragraph 25 talks about the holiday hunger. I was just wondering, looking at some of the figures on there, and I know we're doing really well with the holiday hunger, but it says that there was 1,546 vouchers issued and 14.7% of those were redeemed, which suggests that 1,300 of them weren't redeemed. I'm just wondering, and I know there's going to be changes with the free school meal vouchers going forward from the government. How can we increase that uptake? I mean, have we got other ideas? Or are we going to try and do it a different way? It doesn't sound like a lot of people are taking it up when you look at those figures.
Well, perhaps the government shouldn't issue, Chair and Colin, the vouchers for Marks and Spencers and Waitrose, and should, as they didn't do, use supermarkets that are accessible to all individuals. And that's one of the challenges we had here. And let's not beat about the bush. The government scheme did not work. It took forever to get off the ground. It's getting better now. It is getting better, but let's not forget that, when you're issuing vouchers for the likes of Marks and Spencer's Food and Waitrose, that's not readily accessible to our local community. It's taken time to have this broad accessibility to supermarkets where all our community can get to. So it was a real frustration, the vouchers, a real frustration, but I can give the committee my word that we didn't allow that to get in the way. And what happened was we supplemented that with our holiday hunger scheme with additional bags of food for the kids that needed it. We didn't hold back, and we'll share with you clearly all the statistics of the numbers of children and families that we unfortunately had to support. And I mean that in the nicest possible way, because having to support families means that they're in a level of need and crisis. But the government voucher scheme was challenging, shall we say, in the first quarter of this year. But Gary may want to interject, or Vicky. I think there are improvements now, but my goodness, there needed to be.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Yeah, I think you made the wider point that there was a scheme in place. It wasn't that effective. The days of the scheme through the summer holiday period. Again, all checks and balances will be in place. Colin, we'll try and ensure that we get more of a redemption this time, and I think we will, because the number of outlets has increased where you can redeem those now. But be assured, as Paul says, that actually, we've got it covered, and if that scheme is ineffective, then we'll continue to provide the service that some of our communities need.
Good. Thank you very much.
Can I come in, Chair?
Yes.
Sorry. I know I'm supposed to be on asking questions, but I have got a very good chart here, which is about the holiday hunger and kind of what has been obtained. And I know from certainly my ward and surrounding areas, there was a very good uptake, and it was near 50%. So I do know there's kind of indifferences across the borough, but I do know that the more vulnerable areas certainly did have a higher uptake in terms of those vouchers that were redeemed. Obviously, there's always room to improve.
Okay. Councillor Colin Coulton, I believe you wanted to come in with a question about shared services.
Shared services?
If not, we can move on.
Which page is that?
Well, this was one that you'd submitted earlier.
I was going to ask a question. Are you on page 12 or?
I don't know. It was flagged up that you wish to put a question on shared services, following on from the last question.
I was going to. There was a consultation with employees. Is that the one?
Yes, I think that's it.
Yeah. All I was wondering, it said there'd been a consultation with employees on terms and conditions, and I was wondering if there'd been any reaction from the employees to the survey.
Well, before Gary steps in, my view, Colin, would be the employees of the shared services have overwhelmingly embraced it. They really have. I think Gary can confirm that I do believe that the final negotiations in respect to the outstanding issues with the terms and conditions has been dealt with now. So I think it's all fully signed off, Gary, isn't it?
Yes, Chair, it is fully signed off. It was really around the terms and conditions excluding pay. We're going to have to do around that at the minute. There were only one or two items where we couldn't agree, but through negotiation we've managed to agree those now, so that things like holidays, flexi time, and all the things that are important to staff, we've now resolved all those matters, so that now we've got a set of terms and conditions for those working in shared services. Reminding members that actually we did commence, despite the coronavirus, we did commence on the first.
Right.
And again, just so you're aware, Colin, conditions will only apply once staff move into their new roles and responsibilities, as we work through that in detail.
Yeah.
At present, they're employed on their current terms and conditions.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Councillor Karen Walton, I believe you have a question on the key project MH2K.
Yes, good evening, everyone. It's on page 14, key projects MH2K. The project appears to be off track due to capacity and additional resources that have now been resources. Could you tell me, has the engagement officer been appointed, and when does the post begin? And what timescales are there in place for bringing this item back on track?
Hi Karen, it's Paul.
Hello.
Before I ask Gary to come in, just you aware that one of the points that's been made a few times tonight is that the corporate plan is having a thorough review, and we've had meetings over the weekend, further meetings with officers about this, and it'll be presented to you in September at some point, because clearly following COVID, there's been, there's a fundamental change to the council's priorities. I think we'd all have to agree that that's the case. The mental health of our local community, and particularly the younger people, is becoming an increasing concern for us, Karen. And I'd like to reassure you that will become a major corporate priority moving forward. And I know that it does feed into this, and Gary will give you more detail about this particular project. But the whole issue of mental health in our local community has to be addressed, and it will become a major corporate priority. But on that, Gary, could you just assist with the particular question, please?
Yeah, I think obviously there has been some delay in appointments into the additional capacity. Vicky, I think you're close to the detail. Do you want to pick this one up?
Yeah, so in terms of the project itself, I think we've made quite good progress, but then we were working closely with partners on it to deliver some of the different elements, particularly some of the action plan, and working with Runshaw College, which has been a bit delayed due to some of the students being poorly. And we'll obviously be able to pick that up now that the students have gone back to normal, and the officer capacity will be resolved through the communities team. I don't believe the officer is. I don't understand. Well, I'll have to establish whether the officers imposed. I don't think they are at this point, but we'll get that detail to you in terms of when that role is going to be resourced. But I think, as Councillor Foster says, it will come through a bigger focus generally through the communities team and indeed the work of the wider council to support the mental health of young people, particularly following up on the recommendations of the MAH2K report.
Vicky, thanks. The post is not appointed to. It was part of some additional resources through the budget cycle that we put into the communities team. Obviously, we've had to delay appointments over the last 3 months. Just now starting to work through those details to try and get back on track, get people appointed as the lockdown eases. So again, we are, we've just, as the leader has said, this first quarter we are behind. But we're going to try and get back on track as quickly as we can.
That's okay. Has the engagement officer been appointed?
No, sorry, Karen. We've done no recruitment in the
That's
last.
Okay. We'll look forward to that in September. Can I just ask an additional question on page 15 about the tempo time credits? I'd just like to have you got a breakdown of the cost it's going to cost the council to implement this scheme?
Hi, Karen. It's Paul again. This has been. We have published this historically in the South Ribble Partnership update papers, but I'll ensure that Howard. I'll ask Howard, and I know he's in on the meeting tonight. I'll make sure he sends it all to us. To all the committee. We'll send that full paper for you all to see again, where all the budget lines and where the money is coming from this.
Okay. Thank you very much for that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. If I could move on to page 17, and it'll come as no surprise, this is about the master plans for Leyland, Bamber Bridge and Penwitham. The report refers to this being off track due to the city deal and COVID-19. What's the revised timescale for producing the master plans that will bring this back on track? Which master plan will be prioritised, and how will members be engaged in the process?
Oh. Hi, Chair. Do you want me to take that to start with, Chair?
You can do.
Members will be front and centre of the master plans because it's your local community. As far as I'm concerned, the Penwitham master plan in exercise is commencing later this year. The Leyland master plan, you recall, David, is almost complete, if not complete, as we're being looked at again. It's been looked at again in respect to the town deal to see if there's actually something more and some way of enhancing the Leyland town master plan. And the potential for the town deal that's going ahead with government now, where we could get northwards of 25 million into Leyland, is I held a virtual meeting late last week with members of government and the MP and the board. So Leyland is progressing well. Penwitham hasn't started yet, but I assure you that Penwitham Town Council will be front and centre when that does. The challenges we have are around the Bamber Bridge master planning exercise, if you remember, that's wholly funded by the city deal. And unfortunately, one of the frustrations I have that is due to the COVID, the city deal has just paused. And you're acutely aware of where we are with the city deal. There are a number of challenges. All members in the council are aware of that, but we're not getting any feedback from government yet. So it's something that Jonathan, Gary, and the team are on with pursuing. There's about £200,000 to £300,000 worth of work outstanding in Bamber Bridge that we are. Trust me, as a Bamber Bridge councillor, I am pushing hard to get complete. So Leyland is on track. Penwitham will be on track when we get that commenced later this year, and I will endeavour to sort Bamber Bridge out as quickly as possible.
Okay, thank you. If we can move on to page 18 now, Councillor Colin Sharples, I believe you have a question on the key project private sector stock condition survey.
I do. It says additional capacity has been provided. A report will be presented to the leadership team June/July. Will this project then be on track?
Sorry, I'm just trying to. I've been kicked out of my machine. Just bear with me, Colin, while I get to the papers.
I think it's the top of page 18 from memory. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you, Colin. Yeah, got it now. So again, I haven't seen that paper yet. So in that respect, it's not on track. I think it's part of this general piece that I spoke about earlier, that all our focus has been on particularly a response to the COVID crisis. We're now starting to just ease our way back to all the kind of targets and dates that we set for these pieces of information. It clearly would have come much earlier. The paper will come June, July, and then we'll get into the member arena thereafter. So in that respect, it's not on track, but it's fair to say it's in train and will come before members.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Karen Walton, I believe you have a question on resources and capacity.
Yes, it's just a general question, is what process is there in place to ensure resources and capacity is put in place to deliver the corporate plan? Based on a number of the projects being off track due to capacity, could there be any learning to be had here?
Thank you, Karen. That's a really good question. It's not very binary. That is, there are a number of issues that will affect our ability to deliver corporate plan targets. So resourcing is an issue in a number of areas. There's a number of reasons for that. Out in the governance report that went in, that some capacity has been stripped out of the council in certain areas. There's the dynamic of, in particular, the market and our ability to recruit staff into certain areas. I gave you some examples of our inability to attract staff into the property scene. In particular, has been a challenge. Enforcement staff is another challenge for us. Not that affects the corporate plan targets in particular. So there are some challenges with resources. I've made a number of changes to a number of the teams and the structures and resourcing in a number of areas in the last 12 months. We're currently on with reviewing a number of other areas, particularly in the Neighbourhoods Directorate. So around the communities team, the environmental health, etc., and I'll be coming forward with some observations about what needs to be done in those areas. I think you're right to ask the question, Karen. Resourcing continues to be an issue, both in terms of capacity and our availability of kind of capability, or our ability to attract key skills into the organisation. So it's not something that's causing me massive at the minute, if I'm honest, Karen. I think it's very difficult to get a handle on it at the moment, given the impact of the coronavirus. Yeah, but it's one that as we're updating the plans in the next couple of months, that's something that I'll be coming forward with some observations about where we might need some additional resources to deliver some of this thing. A good example of that, a number of significant capital projects in the plan, and that will ultimately require a different to what we've currently got, some additional skills that are going to be required in the organisation. I'm just looking at the best way of delivering that, whether that means buying those in, or whether that means creating the capacity internally to deliver those things as well. So yeah, there continue to be challenges in terms of resourcing, Karen.
Yeah, I look forward to seeing how you approach this difficult time. Thank you, Gary.
Thank you.
Chair, may I just interject slightly here as well? Because I would urge, with the greatest respect, for all members to read the annual governance statement, as difficult as it is, because one of the things that we've found particularly challenging over the last 12 months is that of capacity within the organisation. And you'll remember that there was a statement about blended working, where a number of us officers were undertaking a number of different roles, shall we say. And then when we've looked at this in more detail, there were clearly gaps, a number of gaps within the organisation, which have made it very, very challenging to deliver some of the objectives that we're looking to deliver. What I can say to you all is, with confidence, is that we know where those gaps are now. We absolutely know where those gaps are, and we're endeavouring to fill them. But also, please be assured as well that with I think it's circa 133 members of staff in shared services now as well, that does give us far more capacity, instant capacity as well. And so I'm not going to deny capacity has been a challenge, but hopefully what all members of the committee will see is that there's some real clarity on roles and responsibilities now, which is what we want to be able to say to you, that you can hold us accountable, absolutely, but it has been a challenging 12 months, and please do have a look at the governance statements if you do get an opportunity to. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry, David, just one final point on the shared service agenda, which is interesting. And as I said, one thing that we have delivered in that period is going live with shared services. We've had a kind of lessons learned piece started today in respect of our ability to respond to COVID. One of the emerging themes and one of the emerging messages from staff is that actually the shared service approach has enabled us to deal with the capacity by bringing in that additional capacity and resilience into a number of services. So I think that's one we'll need to keep our eye on moving forward, certainly in respect of areas that we know aren't as resilient as we might like in terms of service delivery. And it may well be that we come forward with a number of other options for members to look at in terms of extending out the shared service agenda to deal with this capacity, capability and resilience issue. It's the same for these, the two organisations that I'm responsible for.
Okay, thank you. I have another meeting at 6 o'clock, so I'm going to try and move this forward. Councillor Will Adams, I think you have a question on affordable homes delivery.
Thanks, Chair. Are the proposed plans direct house building be sufficient to bring this project back on track? And what are the timescales that are involved in this as well?
Will, could you just point me to the page?
Sorry, I'm on page 18.
Yeah.
At the bottom, it's about delivery of affordable homes, and it does being off track and kind of are the proposed plans to get us back on track, basically.
No, I think if you look at the scale of affordable housing delivery in the borough, based upon those numbers, and the number that the council are intending to do in the next 12 months or so, clearly that's not going to be sufficient to bring it back on track. We are reliant on the developer contributions towards affordable units. I think moving forward, this could become a big issue for many councils. A significant reduction in either the number of houses delivered in the borough, or we start to see developers struggling with to make the returns that they require. There's going to be additional pressure on a council to not meet its policy objectives in respect of affordable units. We'll obviously defend that to the hilt, and we've seen some examples in the last 12 months of the council sticking to its guns, evidencing to developers that actually their numbers aren't quite right, and that they could afford to deliver quite a significant number of affordable homes on a number of sites. So it's a combination of things, Will. It's a combination of the council stepping into the market to deliver on affordable homes, as it said it would do. But the bulk, certainly in the short term, are going to come from housing developments. So it's how they play out, whether we hit the target or not.
So what I would say to that, Chair, and Will, is that's why I think that's why the council is taking the lead on building council houses, because we can't rely on the developers to deliver what we need in the quality that we need. And I'll take it back to the Leyland test track. You know, it was 10.8% in May, the level of affordable house contribution. And when it was consented at the planning committee, it was up at 30%, which was really pleasing. But I think this, again, not that we've got enough on our plate already, but the delivery of council housing, as I would refer to it as, is a top corporate priority, because that's the only way you can guarantee it being delivered. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We now have 4 final questions, all on the resident survey. Maybe we could pull these together in some way. Councillor Karen Walton, you were going to ask a question on paragraph 43. Maybe you could ask the question on paragraph 44 as well. You could take those 2 together.
Yes. Okay. Yeah, paragraph 43 on the resident survey. What plans are being put into place, and how will the resident survey be used to improve the services within the borough? And will the results be benchmarked with other councils across the country to see how we compare?
The answer before Gary comes in, Karen, is that those estimated baselines were estimated by using other authorities, similar authorities, and clearly we've not done this borough-wide resident survey for quite considerable time. So we'll keep a close eye on it. And the major thing that struck me from the resident survey, by the way, was the dissatisfaction across the borough when it comes to value for money. And, you know, that's always a challenge for a local authority. But yeah, the answer, they are benchmarked against other similar local authorities, and we use the LGA, we use the LGA model for that, Karen.
Yeah, good. And the last question is, can I ask the last question, David?
Yes.
Yeah, and when will the member briefing sessions take place so that we can have a full report on the resident survey?
So that's one. I can pick up that one.
Yeah, go on, Vicky. Yeah,
I can pick up that one, Chair. So we're just in the process of developing some more detailed sort of bespoke reports that are looking in more detail at each of the areas, and then we'll be able in a position to do those member briefings. And it gives some really good insight into the neighbourhood areas. So there should be really good briefings.
And Chair, just on that panel,
we'll look forward to that.
We did successfully hold a member briefing in the Civic Centre on Saturday. So I'm quite confident, Chair, Karen, that we'll be able to have all member briefings fairly quickly now, because we've got the capacity to maintain social distancing in the Civic Centre. And I think there's a lot of members asking for that direct interaction in the chamber where we can work together. So we're looking at that, work on that as quickly as we possibly can.
Yes, I look forward to that. Yes.
Okay, thank you. At this point, we come to agree recommendations. Darren, could you possibly read the recommendations back to me?
Thank you, Chair. Some of the themes picked up this evening, that the committee thanks the Leader and Chief Executive for attending for the detailed report and their robust answers. That the panel welcomes the reassurance that data in the report is robust. Commends the Council's response to the COVID-19 pandemic and the recovery plans that are being developed. Looks forward to receiving a copy of the ICT benefit realisation plan once finalised. The panel acknowledges that some of the targets within the corporate plan will need to be reviewed in light of the COVID-19 pandemic, and as part of a refresh of the corporate plan for September, including a review of resource allocation. And finally, asked for further information on the cost of the Tempo Time Management Credits Project, Chair. Those are the notes I made. I don't know if the panel would like to make any changes to those or any additions. Thank you.
Right. Unless anybody indicates they wish to change anything or make additions, can we agree those recommendations?
Yeah, we can. Yes.
Yes.
Thank you. I think that's accepted. In which case, could I thank everybody for their attendance? These aren't the easiest meetings to hold, and just hope everybody keeps safe, keeps well, and we shall speak again in due course. So thank you.
Can I just,
and if I could just close the meeting.
Can I make a point?
You can.
It would be good if we could have a hard copy, because the actual notes for the meeting are on the screen, which where you can't actually see it. Do you understand what I mean?
I do, but I think that's something that perhaps
For future meetings, I mean.
I think that's something Democratic Services could pick up and come back to you.
Yeah.
So with that, if I can thank you all and close the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good evening.
Yeah, good night.
Good evening all.
Good night.